Okay, it's time about to start, so I hope more people will join in a while. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Miblart's first online event. It's really wonderful to connect with you all in this new way. My name is Katya, and I'm an account manager at Miblart, and today I'm thrilled to be a host for this webinar. First of all, I want to thank everyone for staying connected with Miblart through our newsletter and social media, and for joining us today as we explore a crucial topic, marketing tools for indie authors. This is a brand new format for Miblart, and to we hope that this kind of event will bring a tremendous value to your publishing journey. Our goal here is to invite various book publishing experts to share their stories and insights so we can all learn from their expertise about all aspects of book publishing. After this event, you will receive an email from Helen and a video replay of this webinar, and also a little gift from our today guest, Evan. We would love to hear your feedback, so please feel free to reply to that email with your thoughts or maybe have some suggestions for our future webinars. We will really appreciate it. So before we start, I have a question for you. Um, so do you already have a newsletter or you're just in the process of getting it started? Can you please write in the chat yes or no? So we can get this chat a little bit warm up before they begin.
And it also helps us gauge where everyone is on their author journey. In that way, we can also figure out whether we want to spend more time on talking about building newsletters or spend more time on talking about building websites or review teams or direct sales, etc. So yeah, that'd be awesome if we could get everyone's feedback.
Oh, we have such different replies already. Amazing. Somebody has it already, somebody hasn't yet, but hopefully after this webinar, it will motivate you to start
Let's see.
it.
Someone says, yes, I have a newsletter. Awesome. Fantastic. Let's see. Someone else says, it is set up and ready to go once my book launches in the next few weeks. Awesome. No newsletter yet. I have a newsletter and just started and hoping it is working. I have a newsletter, but only like 4 subscribers. Awesome. We will have some good information for you today. Have a blog, no newsletter. Okay. Let's see. I don't have a newsletter, but a weekly blog on my website. Interesting. Okay, so a couple of people in that same position. I have a newsletter and I have a decent click rate. Lol.
So, is it a joke or
Very good.
it is a decent?
Yeah. Awesome. I think our conversation today will definitely be helpful to definitely a lot of the people that are on. Sounds like some people are sort of getting started with building a newsletter. Some people are have started, but it sounds like they've just started and sort of figuring things out still. So
Mm.
that's exciting. I think we'll have
So
a good time.
I'm sure about this. So everyone, it's my pleasure to introduce our today's the guest expert, Evan Gow. Evan is the indie developer behind StoryOrigin, a marketing tool and community where authors collaborate to find reviewers, build mailing lists, increase sales, and stay on top of deadlines. And since this is a Q&A session, feel free to drop any of your questions for Evan in the group chat, and we will do our best to cover as many as we can, so don't hold back. Even it's such a pleasure to have you with us today. Our amazing Miblart community and I are eager to learn from you. Could you please tell us more about yourself and why did you build StoryOrigin?
Thanks so much for inviting me. Yeah. So as you mentioned, my name is Evan Gow. I'm the founder and indie developer behind StoryOrigin. And the reason that I built it, I got interested in entrepreneurship back in college. But before that, I had an interest in writing. I used to write short stories back in high school. And at some point, I decided I wanted to build writing tools and get back into writing. And after I left my previous role, that was sort of the plan, was to build tools for writers and get back into writing. And I went and I talked to a bunch of authors like, hey, here's some ideas that I have, or and here are the things that I was thinking about building. And I asked them what they were using. And I heard I use this platform for building my mailing list. I use this other service for finding reviewers. I use a different service for creating universal book links. I have a different service for building my website. I use some combination of Word docs and Google Forms to get feedback from my beta readers. And I have spreadsheets for tracking my daily word count and distributing audiobook promo codes. And I was like, okay, this sounds completely overwhelming. You have like 8 different services, like 5 different spreadsheets. You're doing all of this context switching between all these different tasks while like and trying to keep all of this in mind of like what is next on your to-do list at the same time that you're trying to write a book and you're trying to keep that entire story in your head sounds very, very difficult. So I wanted to build one place that does it all for authors so they don't have to think so much about all that context switching. And so quickly that took over 100% of my time. So I did not get back into writing the way that I had initially planned. Um, but I now spend, most of my time writing software, which I find to be extremely fun as well. So I love what I do. And yeah, I wear all the hats. So I'm the engineering department, the customer support, the marketing department. So regardless of which kind of creates a fun journey because when authors have feedback, I can put on my engineering hat and say, "Oh, cool! Like this is another thing that I can build or another way I can improve StoryOrigin." So, yeah,
Amazing. So you have tried all kind of approaches yourself before building this app. I guess you got the best out of it with your experience. Have you published any books, by the way?
no, I have not. I have not published any books. Yeah, I used to write short stories back in high school, and then when I was going to get back into writing and then build tools, build StoryOrigin and all of that stuff, it quickly took over 100% of my time. So I did not ever get the chance to write a book the way that I had been wanting to.
Okay, hopefully it's in the future for you.
Yes, still on my very long to-do list.
So, talking about marketing, newsletters, social media, paid ads, where to start?
Yeah, so I generally recommend authors start with building a newsletter. Someone mentioned it in their that they are just about to launch a book and that they've just started a newsletter and that they're planning on sending that out after the book launches. I recommend starting with building a newsletter. That's something that you can do before you even have published a book. So I generally recommend to authors start building that mailing list as soon as possible. That way, when you go to launch your first paid book, you have an audience that you're launching to rather than launching to crickets and then trying to figure things out on the back end. In that way, that also will set you up for like building a review team or finding people that might want to beta read that an early version of the manuscript of that book before going on to launch it. And obviously the question comes like, well, how do you build a mailing list if you haven't published any books yet? And that's where I would recommend authors have a reader magnet. So that is something that's usually a story, like a prequel or a side story, or just an anthology of short stories that you've put together and using that to entice people to sign up to your mailing list and give that away for free when they sign up to your mailing list. And then that's how you start to get people on your mailing list. And that way you have an audience by the time you're ready to launch, like your first paid book.
That's a great tip. It's like on Miblart we have this free cover idea, so authors can just like try this free service without any attachments. And yeah, it's really interesting that you can share those things in your newsletter. And
Yeah.
how do authors set up a newsletter?
Yeah, so when you are running a newsletter, you want to make sure that you get started on an email service provider like MailChimp or MailerLite or ActiveCampaign or ConvertKit or Author Email. There's a whole bunch of them. MailerLite has a really good free tier, and they also have like automated welcome sequences that you can get started with on the free tier as well. So that's a good one that a lot of authors get started with. Um, and their free tier is fairly generous. So I would recommend getting started with them. You just want to make sure that you use an email service provider like one of the ones I mentioned, and not just be sending emails directly from your normal, email inbox, and like, CCing 100 people on an email or BCCing them, because sending emails out that way, you won't get any sort of like tracking or analytics. And also, people need to be able to unsubscribe easily from those newsletters and stuff like that, which you can't do if you're just sending out, CCing 100 people on an email. There's no like unsubscribe link for that or anything. So yeah, you get an account on an email service provider like MailerLite, get signed up, and then you're ready to go.
Mhm. And how do authors entice readers to sign up for their mailing list?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, I recommend having a free story that you give away when someone signs up to your mailing list. So as I mentioned, you can do a prequel or a side story or an anthology of short stories, or you can even do a sample of just like the first few chapters of the book. I generally recommend authors use a prequel short story, like 10 to 20,000 words, as their reader magnet, to entice people to get onto your mailing list, because it provides a really easy hook into getting people wanting to read the follow-up book to that. But I would say don't let that recommendation act as a roadblock to you, as like it has to be done this way kind of a thing. If what you've got now is you can take the first 3 chapters out of your book and put that together as a sample and use that as a reader magnet, and that's what you can do today, then do that. If you've got some short stories that you've had laying around for a while and you've never really done anything with them, compile them together and make that into your reader magnet. Anything that you can do to get started building your mailing list sooner rather than later, because I hear from a lot of authors that, well, if I want to write a prequel short story, like first I'm gonna have to take some time to think about an idea. Then it's gonna take me like a month or two to write it. Then I have to get it edited, find a cover designer for it, where Miblart could come into play. Um, and then yeah, it just becomes this whole process where it's like, okay, I'm not gonna be starting to build my mailing list for, 3 or 4 months at this point. So if what you've got today is you've already written, book one, and you can pull out the first 3, chapters, um and you've already got the book cover done for it, then you can just use that as a reader magnet and get started building your mailing list today. And then you can always add on more reader magnets. You don't have to limit yourself to having a single reader magnet. You can put together that anthology, or write that prequel, or create a side story or something like that later. And regardless of what you use as a reader magnet, I would always recommend, if you have like an anthology of short stories or a prequel, put the first chapter of your paid book at the end of that reader magnet, just embedded, in the file, like it's like another chapter, and have them get started reading into that paid book. That way, people are really hooked into wanting to buy that book so that they can read the rest of it. Because once they get started into chapter one and they're sort of left with that cliffhanger, it's great for them to. It's a great hook into getting them to start reading that first book.
Thank you so much for sharing about this wonderful tip. We also have an idea in the chat. Let me read it out so everyone can hear it. I recently gave away printable bookmarks in my newsletter, and it works surprisingly well. I also did a downloadable magazine-style quiz for fellow writers to find their writing routine. Since writers are also readers, I'm hoping this will help me find my groove. What do you think about this idea?
Those are awesome. I mean, authors are always coming up with interesting ideas for how to entice people get onto their newsletters. And I would say, just the key things that you want to make sure are that your reader magnet matches the genre of what you're writing. So if you're doing like a magazine style quiz, or you're creating bookmarks or something like that, like if you write fantasy novels, like epic fantasy novels, you would want to make sure that those book covers would entice someone who reads epic fantasy, right? You wouldn't want to do a book cover which has designs which would match more of a like sci-fi setting or something like that. Or if you're doing a uh like magazine style quiz, then you would want to make sure that that is based around the genre that you write in. That way you're getting the right types of readers. Just because you wouldn't want to make a quiz that would, target, let's say, like, steamy romance readers if you write cozy romance, right? Because then you're building a mailing list full of, steamy romance readers. And when you promote your cozy romance novel to them, they're not going to be super interested, right? So you can have all sorts of different ideas for reader magnets. Do not limit yourself. Just make sure that whatever you do come up with, you're going to be enticing the right readers.
Yes, right. As you mentioned, with book covers goes the same. If it doesn't match the genre, then you will not. It will be just a disappointment for the target audience. So here,
Right.
it's important what they will be interested in, right? In this reader magnet. And how do you spread the word about like your offer in the newsletter, the reader magnet?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I mean, after you've written that story, you're going to want to create a landing page for and provide a way for readers to download that story. So you can use a tool like StoryOrigin, which has a super simple page builder. It's just like add a description, upload the book and the book cover, and the page is done for you. And StoryOrigin automatically handles distributing the ebook file and handles all the reader tech support if the readers run into any trouble with getting that file onto their preferred reading device, all that stuff. So after you've written that reader magnet, create that sign up page using StoryOrigin or whatever other tools that you have at your disposal, and have that download page ready. And then uh, after that, you want to promote that sign up page. So a few good places to promote that would be, for example, if you've already published your book one, put the link for that reader magnet, that anthology or prequel or side story. Put the link for that reader magnet at the end of book one. And so readers that have read book one and love the characters and want to dive more deeply into this universe, into this world, these characters, etc., they can say, oh, I would love to read more about these characters. Let me go sign up for that reader magnet. And by doing so, they'll be joining your newsletter. And those will be your best subscribers because they are already familiar with you and your work and they love your characters and they want to learn more about them. So they will be your best subscribers for sure. And then another great place is putting the links for that reader magnet on your website or social media, just sharing it wherever readers might find it. And then another great way to promote that reader magnet is by doing cross promotions with other authors as well. So arranging newsletter swaps or group promos where you and other authors are cross promoting each other's books and helping each other build up your mailing lists, etc. And just to give a quick uh, definition of what a newsletter swap is, for example, that's where you've got a mailing list. I've got a mailing list. I'll agree to promote one of your books in one of my upcoming newsletters if you agree to promote one of my books in one of your upcoming newsletters. And you can arrange these newsletter swaps on places like StoryOrigin. Before StoryOrigin around, a lot of that was on like Facebook groups and using Google Forms. And StoryOrigin really simplified that process for a lot of authors. So that's one good way to do it. And then you can also join group promos. And a group promo is a little different from a newsletter swap. Instead of it being a one-to-one cross promotion, a group promotion was where you, me, and let's say 20 other authors who all write, similar books, we all list our books on a single landing page, and then we all drive our traffic to that landing page. And so we will all build our mailing lists or find reviewers or increase our sales sort of together by having all of our books listed on that single landing page. And so those cross promotions, those can be specifically for reader magnets. So if you're just getting started building your mailing list, you've got 0 subscribers, join the group promos that are based on promoting reader magnets. And when you're arranging newsletter swaps with other authors, ask them to promote one of your reader magnets. And the question I usually get from authors is, well, I have 0 people. Why would any author want to cross promote with me? Like, I don't have any subscribers. A lot of authors were in that same position where they had 0 subscribers on their mailing list, got started on StoryOrigin, and excuse me, just applied. Oh, one sec. Just applied for group promotions and newsletter swaps, and other authors were more than happy to accept them for those newsletter swaps and group promos. So I would say a lot of them were just, are trying to sort of pay it forward. And so they had someone else that helped them when they were just getting started building their mailing list. And so they're more than happy to help other readers. I'm gonna get
Okay.
a cough drop.
No problem, no problem.
No
By
worries.
by the way, I see there are some collaborations already happening, like people sharing experience about what kind of reader magnets you can use for newsletters. So if anyone already have some experience they can share, please, you're welcome to use the chat. So other authors can maybe get inspired or get motivated to also try these new tools. Let's Collaboration is a powerful tool, to be honest. Like, this is what we are doing today as well. So let's collaborate in the chat and yeah, newsletters as well with these newsletter swaps.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love to
And
see it.
like when you're deciding to do newsletter swaps with someone, are there any like key factors? How do you choose this person you want to do newsletter swaps? Like other like do's and don'ts with like how to choose this person?
Yeah, so when you're arranging newsletter swaps, I would recommend looking for other authors that are in your genre. So if, going back to that, earlier example, if you write cozy romance, don't arrange a newsletter swap with another author that writes steamy romance, for example, or try and find newsletter swaps with other authors that write cozy romance. And you can try and find like Facebook groups and stuff like that that are catered to specific genres where authors are arranging newsletter swaps. On StoryOrigin, you can go and you can look at the list of upcoming dates that other authors are sending out their newsletters, and you can look through the tags that they have listed uh, as things that they write, and so you can filter down to find other authors that use those same tags. So if they use the romance tag and the cozy tag, then that would be like another good author for you to arrange a newsletter swap with. And like I said, don't worry if like your mailing list is a lot smaller than theirs, or if you've got a huge mailing list and they've got a lot smaller mailing list. A lot of those authors that have huge mailing lists, like there's 2 key parts to a newsletter, right? One part is you want to build rapport with your audience. Tell them a little bit about who you are, and give them, personal updates, share stories from your life, because that helps you build a rapport with your audience. And so they'll be more engaged with you. But if every newsletter that you send out is just a little vignette from your life of something that's going on, eventually readers are going to stop opening your newsletters because they don't just want to open your newsletter to look at dog pictures or pictures of you on the beach or something like that, right? Readers are always looking for their next read. And so the second part of a newsletter, so it's the first part is that sort of building rapport part. The second part of a newsletter I recommend for authors is having deals for readers. So sharing other books that you think that your audience might be interested in reading. These don't necessarily have to be books that you have personally read and are recommending that they read. It can just I recommend thinking about it like sort of the also bought section of Amazon, right? Readers that bought this also, bought these other things. That's not, that's not Jeff Bezos saying, I've read these books and I'm personally recommending them to you, right? That's just saying, here's other things that might interest you. And so in your newsletter, I recommend authors take that same sort of mindset of here's just some other books that might interest you guys. And so those books that you mention in your newsletter, those can be from the newsletter swaps that you've arranged with other authors or the group promos that you've arranged with other authors. And that is what will keep your readers opening and clicking on your emails.
Okay, and how do we track the results of newsletter marketing, newsletter swaps?
Yeah, so when you arrange newsletter swaps or join group promos on StoryOrigin, you will get tracking links from StoryOrigin that are specific to you. So you just use that tracking link in your newsletter, and then StoryOrigin will attribute you those clicks. And that's another thing when you're going back to your previous question of like how do you decide who you're going to arrange a newsletter swap with? StoryOrigin, when you arrange newsletter swaps or join group promos, you can look at the other authors' newsletters and see what cross promotions they've been a part of in the past and how many clicks that they've sent to those cross promotions. So if you see an author has been sending, 30 books or 30 clicks to every book that they agreed to promote, then if you arrange a newsletter swap with that person, they'll probably send about 30 clicks your way as well, as long as you're, fit the sort of genre that they are promoting, right? And so that is another great way to determine, okay, who would be a good person for me to arrange a newsletter swap with is checking that cross promotion history. And so yeah, just use those tracking links from StoryOrigin when you're putting those books in your newsletter.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you for so many interesting insights. We have a question from the audience. When a reader magnet is put up and people sign up for it, how long before a follow-up email goes out to remind them about the book and post a review?
So so with a reader magnet, generally the goal is not necessarily to get reviews on the book. It is to build your mailing list. Now, if you want to ask people for reviews, you can certainly do that. But the goal of a reader magnet is purely just to get more people onto your mailing list. And so it might be a good point here to actually talk about like newsletter welcome sequences. So when you start building your mailing list and you start getting all of these people on your mailing list joining via requesting your reader magnet, you might be like, okay, what do I do next? What you want to do is set up an automation sequence on your email service provider. All of them have different terminology for what they call it. Some call it like an automation, some call it a welcome sequence. Others email service providers have different names for them. On MailerLite, it's called an automation. And what you can do is you can uh, write emails that are triggered. So every time someone joins your mailing list, an email will go out to that person that has just joined your mailing list. And you can put these emails, you can send out multiple emails to them. So for example, you can have an email that's triggered as soon as they join your mailing list. And that first email in your welcome sequence might just say, hey, thanks for joining my mailing list. Here's again, you probably already got the download link from StoryOrigin, but here's that download link again, just in case you missed it. Um, and then, and just like, thanks for joining my mailing list. And then for the second email in your welcome sequence, generally I would recommend uh, telling them a little bit about yourself, saying like, oh, here's where I'm from, here's what interested me in this genre, here are some of my own favorite writers in this genre, and tell them a little bit more about yourself. That's you sort of building that rapport with your audience. And then I usually recommend also asking them a question in your welcome sequences as well. So you might ask them like, oh, who are some of your favorite writers in this genre? And that gets them to not naturally start engaging with you more. And so you start to build a real relationship with your audience. And then for the third email in your welcome sequence, I would say, hey, I would say you would have that triggered after like, when you're setting that up on your email service provider, you'd have that triggered as like, send this email, a week after they've joined my mailing list. And there you could make a pitch to them to get started reading that reader magnet again if they haven't already. Like, oh, here's a little bit about the story of like how I came up with the idea for this reader magnet. Here's how I came up with the idea for this prequel or this anthology of short stories. One author that I talked to, he had this experience as a little kid where like he lost his sister in the mall, and he's a horror writer, and was writing about like other dimensions and stuff like that. And so like his hook for his email sequence was like, oh, this was this thing that happened to me, and this is what inspired this story. Have you ever had anything like that happen to you? And that got, that gets people interested in that story because it's like a real life thing that happened, and inspired his story, and then also gets them to engage with him of sharing their own stories with him. And then for the last email in your welcome sequence, I generally recommend that is where you want to make a call to action to get people to become reviewers for you. Now, usually I recommend that reader magnet being a like a prequel short story. So you might not even have that prequel available for purchase on Amazon or other retailers. You certainly can. Have that book have that like short story available for purchase on retailers, but you don't have to. And a lot of authors don't. They'll make that story exclusive to their mailing list. Like, this is the only way that you can get this prequel is by joining my mailing list, and that makes it a little bit more enticing to readers as well. And so you wouldn't necessarily be asking them to review the reader magnet that they got from you. Instead, what you would say is something like, "Hey, do you want to get all of my books free forever?" And that's what I recommend as like a good subject line for this email in your welcome sequence. And there you make a call to action for them to join your review team, where you will give them your books for free, usually like several weeks ahead of the publication date, with the expectation that they're going to leave a review on that book on the publication date. And if you're using, you can use StoryOrigin's review copies feature for this, or you could set it up using like a Google form or using a form on your email service provider or something like that. With StoryOrigin's review copies feature, the way it works is if you send them to that link for the review copy, they'll say where they're going to leave a review of it, like Amazon, Goodreads, BookBub, other retailers. And then they would leave the links to their reviewer profiles from those platforms as well. So if they say they're going to leave a review on Goodreads, they would leave the link to their Goodreads reviewer profile, or Amazon, they'd leave the link to their Amazon reviewer profile. And when you get that request from them as an author on StoryOrigin, you are in the driver's seat about who gets your review copies. So if you see someone has never left a review on Amazon before, and this is the first review copy that they've ever requested on StoryOrigin, then you might say, oh, okay, I'm not sure I want to give this person a free review copy because I don't know that they're actually going to complete it. Like, they don't really have much of a history there. Or you might say like, oh, this person has only ever reviewed like steamy romances, and I write cozy romance, and I don't want to give them a book that they're going to be disappointed by, etc. So StoryOrigin gives you their reviewer profile so you can see what they've reviewed, if they've reviewed recently. And then StoryOrigin also gives you stats. So if they've requested and been approved for 20 review copies on StoryOrigin previously, and they've completed the review process for all 20 of those, then you can be relatively confident that they're actually going to leave a review for you if you give them a free review copy. So StoryOrigin provides those stats to authors when they're making that decision about, okay, do I want to give this person, let this person onto my review team for this book?
Mhm. Yeah, it sounds like an amazing and useful tool. I hope you can share your screen later on to show us
Yeah.
some of the features
Yeah,
StoryOrigin has.
I'd be happy to do that.
But like before, let's wrap up the topic about newsletter. Do you have any like something to share about common mistakes when authors trying to build their audience?
I think the most common mistake that I see is actually not necessarily about building a newsletter, but it's more about the timing of building a newsletter. A lot of authors, or like when they're arranging cross promotions, a lot of authors focus on sales, which is a great mindset for authors because so many authors um don't really focus on trying to make money, and then there are some authors that focus on trying to make money too soon and sort of put the cart ahead of the horse. So if you've published a book and you've got zero reviews on it, and you join group promos and you arrange newsletter swaps to send traffic to your universal book links. And so that would take readers to where you have your book for sale on Amazon, or if you have it in other places like Google Play or Kobo or Barnes and Noble, etc. So if you're sending traffic to those sales pages and you've got 0 reviews on that book, then readers, when they get sent there, they're going to read the description, look at the book cover, and then they're going to go to that reviews section. And if they see that no one else has bought the book, that's going to hurt your conversion rates on sales quite a bit. Most readers are looking for social proof that a book is good before they buy it. And so I usually recommend what you want to do before that is get reviews, right? Make sure that you have reviews on that book. That way, when you send traffic to the retail page on Amazon or wherever else, that people will actually buy the book. But
Mm-hmm.
getting reviews on that book is a little bit of a chicken and egg problem as well, where it's like, I need sales so that I can get reviews, but I need reviews so that I can get sales. So you solve that problem by giving away those free review copies ahead of the publication date. That way, on day one that's published, people have already read the book and they're ready to post their reviews as soon as it's published. But building that team of reviewers is another sort of thing like, well, how do I do that? And that's where having your mailing list comes in handy, because if you've got a mailing list, you've got people that you've got an audience that you can entice them to become a part of your review team. And so it's sort of all goes back to, okay, start with writing a reader magnet, get that to entice people onto your mailing list, then start building a review team, then focus on sales later. And so, yeah, a lot of times I just see people doing it in the reverse order, where they're like focused on sales and then they realize that's not working. Then they focus on reviews and then they realize, oh, how do I do this? And then they realize, oh, okay, I build a mailing list. And at that point, it's like, okay, finally, you're in the right place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, strategy really can ruin this kind of success. Um, okay, so if anyone has any more questions about newsletters, be welcome to leave them in the chat. We can go back to them later. But let's switch to author website, because I know this is also important thing to have, and not everyone has it, unfortunately. So let's talk about the importance of this marketing tool. So do authors even need a website?
Yeah, I mean, I get that question. I get that question a lot. And you know, as an author starting out, you don't really need a website so much as you just need a landing page where readers can find out what books you've written. And you don't need some complicated huge behemoth with a ton of pages, and like, you don't need to spend 3 months designing and styling it and all that stuff, because that will get in the way of your writing and all that stuff. You really just need a simple landing page that shows all the books that you've written, any reader magnets that readers might want to get. Maybe you've got the links to your social profiles and a little section about yourself. So I do recommend authors have a website, but it doesn't need to be fancy. Like, it doesn't need to have a ton of different pages and a ton of different links, and you don't need to have a bunch of different blog posts and all that stuff. But having a website that you own, and you own that as a platform, is incredibly valuable to you as an author, because for whatever reason, if you don't have social media, or if you have your account canceled on or terminated on a different service or a different platform, like, your website is something that you own and that people can't really take away from you. There's, you 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 it's not like a Facebook account where Facebook can just like terminate your account or suspend you, and then what do you do if you've got a bunch of followers on there, right? That website is something you own, as well as your newsletter is something that you own. When you've got those emails on your mailing list, if for whatever reason, Mailer Lite went out of business tomorrow, you just need to take that list of emails that you have and then port them over to a different email service provider like MailChimp or ActiveCampaign or ConvertKit, etc., and just send your emails out through that platform instead. It's, at the end of the day, that email list is something that you own.
Mhm. So you mentioned that for the landing page, it's enough for a starter to have like just your information, what oh sorry about that. Your
No worries.
information, what book you publish, just like to give general idea for your audience, who you are, what you do. But when after it expands to the actual website, are there any is there anything specific that should be there? Like how do you expand it from the landing page to the author's website? Or is it
Yeah.
like not necessary maybe?
Yeah, well, so I mean, you can keep it one page for there are six-figure authors whose website is just a single page that has all their stuff in one place, which makes it easier to navigate for readers and makes it easier for you as an author to update it as well. So you don't need a ton of different pages and all of that stuff. But the things that you want to have there are like your reader magnets, enticing people to join your mailing list, and then have where your books are available for sale, and then just have a little about section on you. And StoryOrigin has a website builder feature as well, which allows you to build your website in about 30 seconds. It does not take you very long at all to get started with StoryOrigin with a website builder because it's designed specifically for authors and using those landing pages that you've in links that you've set up on StoryOrigin before and just hosting them on your own domain. So it's incredibly simple to set up. And it's not like when you go to like a WordPress or Wix or Squarespace or something like that, where you're having to design all of the elements and like you're having to determine what's the spacing between all of these things. None of that stuff is set up for authors, and so it takes a lot of time to customize it to what a good setup would look like for an author. With StoryOrigin's website builder, it's like just auto laid out for you in the way that works best. And I'd be happy to do a screen share of what that looks like and all of that
Yeah,
as well.
I was just about to ask you if you could demonstrate us how
Yeah.
it works.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Um, so here I am on Story Origin. I will go over to so once you've created an account, then you would just go to that drop down, hit for authors, and here's that stuff that we've been talking about. So you can create reader magnet landing pages, universal book links. You can create direct sales pages, beta copies, review copies. So you'll find all of those landing pages and stuff right in this dashboard here. And then the website builder is under the custom links tab. So website builder and custom links. And you can create a website with this feature. So this is the website. It's got all of my examples are with Arthur Conan Doyle because the Sherlock Holmes series, it's all public domain at this point. So I use Sherlock Holmes for a lot of my demonstration stuff. So here's a reader magnet. I could click on this page. It'd take me to the reader magnet landing page where I can get the download, and I'd enter my name and email address, and then I could join your mailing list, and that download would be sent to me. And this is all hosted on, readsherlockholmes.com/freebie. And then here's Read Sherlock Holmes, and here's my book series. So here's like my free first in series, and then I'm selling these direct. And then here are some short stories, and these are universal book links. So if I go here, that takes me to where the book is available for sale. So I could click on Amazon, and it would take me to the Amazon retail page. And one of the things with Amazon, with StoryOrigin's universal book links, is that they will direct you to the Amazon storefront for your country. So if a reader clicks on Amazon on that universal book link, and they're located in the UK, then I'll take them to amazon.co.uk for that book page. Or if they're in Australia, it'll take them to amazon.com.au. Or if they're in America, it'll take them to amazon.com, right? So StoryOrigin helps you utilize sort of those best practices just like right out of the gate, which a lot of authors don't do on their own websites. They'll just have a link to just amazon.com. And so they're missing out on like 30% of their readers that are probably located in other countries, right? And you can see here there's like a little about section, and then you can have the links for uh, social media or retailers where they can find you as well. And Yeah, it's super simple to set that stuff up.
Even if somebody already have a website on Wix, is it easy to move that to StoryOrigin?
So StoryOrigin, you wouldn't move that website to StoryOrigin. You would create a new website with StoryOrigin. So like when you use Wix or something like that, that is using all of their own custom elements and all of that stuff. Um, and so you can't just like port that website wholesale over to StoryOrigin. You have to use StoryOrigin's builder, but StoryOrigin's builder is very simple. Um, it's essentially just taking the pages that you've got on StoryOrigin and then adding them. So like here's the reader magnet freebie that I set up, right? You can see this here at the top of the page. I can delete this and remove this from the website. And then if I go over here and I refresh this, you'll see that it's now gone. And the first thing in this website is my series that I had marked after that, right? So it's essentially just adding a segment to your so adding a segment to your web page, and I'll add it back again here. And I can reorder this and make this one again. And so if I refresh this page, you'll see it's now back up, right? So that's how simple it is to build a website with StoryOrigin. It's literally like clicking a few buttons. You don't have to worry about like padding or spacing or anything like that. If you do have a if you do have a website already built on Wix or Squarespace or WordPress or whatever, and you have it hosted at like www you know, readsherlockholmes.com, which is what I have mine listed under, right? So it's www.readsherlockholmes.com. You don't have to have it hosted under that subdomain. You can have a different subdomain. So you could use something like books.readsherlockholmes.com instead. And let's see, I think I've used books.readsherlockholmes. So I've already got my registrar set up. I think to host the book there. Nope. Okay. So basically, all you would do is you would go into your registrar wherever you bought your domain name, and you'd add a new record that says, okay, I want books.readsherlockholmes to point to StoryOrigin, and StoryOrigin hosts your website for you that way. So over on my registrar, so I'm using Namecheap for this domain. So I would go over to Namecheap, right? So I would enter Namecheap, and it'll take me to the support docs for Namecheap on how to do this. So you go over your domain, you go to the settings, and you'd add what host you want. So you can have it be blog.readsherlockholmes.com or books.readsherlockholmes.com, etc. So StoryOrigin provides you all the instructions there to get it set up. Um,
So
and
it
so
seems
if you
like
have something with Wix, you can also set up an author website with StoryOrigin just on different subdomain.
so it seems like there is no technical knowledge required to use StoryOrigin. Is it correct?
No, yeah. I mean, in yeah, it's you as long as you can follow like the instructions from your registrar, which basically say like go here, enter, the thing there. It's usually not more than a 2-minute process. Like it takes very, very little time. Honestly, the hardest part for most authors is like finding the button like on their registrar where they were supposed to click the button, right? Like that is usually the hardest part. It's not anything about like having, technical knowledge or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So in most registrars have like very clear like support documents that say, go here, click that, and then enter that, and then save it, and then you're good. So yeah, you don't need any technical knowledge to get started with StoryOrigin. But if people ever do run into trouble, they can always hit the contact page on StoryOrigin. My email address is right there. Or if they go to StoryOrigin, they go to the very bottom of the homepage, you'll see my email address, my name there and stuff as well. You can always email me directly as well.
Mm-hmm. And can you please tell us a little bit more how what sets StoryOrigin apart from other platforms or apps, and how do you help authors with increase their book sales?
Yeah, so going back to sort of our conversation at the beginning with like how I got started with StoryOrigin, how I started building StoryOrigin. StoryOrigin is a one-stop shop for all these different things. So if you have if you're currently managing things like you've got one service for building your mailing list, another service for managing your review team, another service for creating universal book links, another service, or a spreadsheet for like tracking your daily word count, or you're using some combination of like Word docs and email to get feedback from beta readers, all that stuff. StoryOrigin can do all of that for you in one place. So that's really what sets it apart.
And we also have a question from the chat. How do you feel about putting a prequel on your website for all visitors to give them an idea of writing style? And then say if you want more of the first chapter or my new novel, sign up for the newsletter.
I think that's a great idea. I would make that prequel the reader magnet personally. I would recommend having that be the freebie that you give away when they sign up to your newsletter to see if they like your writing, and then for them to um decide, yeah, whether or not they want to buy your other books. But that being said, if you just want to make that like a freebie download without them having to sign up to your mailing list at all, that is that is a great idea. And it's, you can test out both strategies and see which works best. I generally recommend just putting that behind a sign up to your newsletter, though.
Mm, thank you. We have another question. Do you have an opinion having an author newsletter versus an author Substack?
So Substack, a lot of authors simply treat Substack as just an email service provider. So you don't really need to look at Substack a ton differently than you would just look at a normal email newsletter necessarily. Um, I would say if you are treating your Substack differently than a regular newsletter, where let's say your Substack is just like just you're only just uploading chapters of your book or something like that, and providing like a sort of a serial fiction experience that way or something, then I would recommend that you still have your own regular email newsletter where you are building that rapport with your audience, like sharing personal anecdotes and stuff like that. Um, but if you are treating your Substack more just like it's a normal email service provider where you're sharing a little bit about your life, sharing, other books that readers might want to look at, and you can also combine them and share like, here's a new chapter out of my work in process or whatever. So I wouldn't say author newsletter versus a Substack. Like they are not things that need to be put against each other. They can be the same thing, or you can do both. Like you don't need to do one or the other. They're not mutually exclusive. Um, and I would generally recommend, so Substack does not have an API that's available. So StoryOrigin integrates with a bunch of different email service providers. So when someone signs up to get your reader magnet on StoryOrigin, their email is automatically email added straight to your MailerLite or your MailChimp email list. And so you don't need to do anything. They're just added directly to that email service provider. But if you use Substack, StoryOrigin can't just automatically send that email address to your email service provider because Substack doesn't have an API that StoryOrigin can integrate with. But that's totally fine. There are lots of authors that use Substack and use StoryOrigin. All that you would do is go to StoryOrigin and download the CSV of signups that you've gotten for your reader magnet, and then upload that manually to Substack. What I generally recommend to authors who want to use Substack, though, is actually still have an email service provider like MailerLite, because Substack does not really allow you much in the way of customizing an automation or a welcome sequence. So going back to our earlier conversation where I said like, oh, here's a good first email in your welcome sequence is like just a thank you for joining my mailing list. Here's the download. Second one, like, here's a little bit about me. Third being like, here's a little bit about my book. Fourth being like a call to action to join your review team. With Substack, you only get one welcome email. You cannot set up a sequence of emails after someone has joined your Substack list. So what I generally recommend to authors is set up a welcome sequence on something like MailerLite, and set up that like, 3 or 4 email welcome sequence. And then after people have made it all the way through that email sequence, take all those that made it through the full sequence without unsubscribing, and then just download that from MailerLite and then upload that to Substack. And that's one way that authors kind of like keep their costs down, because Substack is free, and MailerLite, after you hit a certain number of subscribers, once you have over 1,000 subscribers, then you have to start paying for it. And it's not a huge cost, but a lot of authors are willing to trade off a little bit of time for saving, a few bucks a month here and there. And so you can do things that way, where you just like have your welcome sequence on MailerLite and then you port your subscribers over to Substack. And I would recommend that to anyone considering Substack. That way you get a little bit more flexibility with that welcome sequence.
Thank you for your profound answer. And yeah, I'm not an author myself, but like this story, your app really makes it sound so easy to do this kind of marketing. So it makes me want to write a book right now and just try this process out. And so we'll be wrapping up soon. Can you maybe share some success story of somebody who used StoryOrigin, and then also how do you get started if somebody here wants to try your product?
Yeah, sure. I'm gonna share my screen again just real quickly. So for like author success stories, StoryOrigin has a ton of different features, whether or not it's talking about like getting more reviews or gathering beta feedback or building your mailing list. So like something we haven't really talked about at all is like using StoryOrigin for your beta readers. So you can go here and check out what other authors have said. So, Kate said, like, StoryOrigin is the third beta reader feedback service I've tried. I think it's perfect. I have no plans to use any other service ever. StoryOrigin made gathering my feedback on my novel, The Void Beyond the Walls, as well as other shorter stories, a breeze. Someone else said, highly recommended. I love the beta copies, features, etc. So I would just go to the StoryOrigin homepage, and then you can go down to this list, and you can click on those features, and you can see feedback from authors that have used it. So for to talk about like mailing lists specifically, like Amanda said, I grew my mailing list from 0 to 1,000 subscribers in the first year, able to grow 1,200 subscribers in the first 18 newsletter issues, 400 subscribers in 1 month, 0 to 4K, etc. And if you want to read more of those reviews as well, you can click like to see the full review from them instead of just the snippet. And this is a list of just hundreds of authors that have written stories or provided like snippets from their time using StoryOrigin in relation to certain features. And you can also even go to the top of the landing page, the page here, and you can select like what was your goal? Like, was it to just track your word count? And you can read stories from authors specifically about like the word count tracking feature and stuff. So again, that's just if you go to the StoryOrigin homepage and you go to click read more under any one of those reviews, you can see more. You can hit this see 150 plus more reviews. Yeah, so that's yeah. There are lots of case studies from authors using StoryOrigin's various features. And if anyone has any questions on StoryOrigin, like I said earlier, you can always go onto StoryOrigin, scroll to the bottom of the page. You'll see my name. You'll see my email address. My inbox is always open. You're always welcome to reach out. And that's also a lot of times how I improve StoryOrigin, as well as if authors have a question about something, I'll be like, oh, okay, if I get enough questions about this, then that lets me know I need to, I'll change this process up so to make it easier and stuff like that. And I think the other question you had was, how do authors, what's the best way to get started? I would recommend, just to quickly share again, going to your author dashboard, and then, for example, hitting this build mailing list button, and that will give you a checklist of just go here, click here, do that, create that, create that, create that. And then apply for a group promo or request newsletter swaps, and takes you to that list of places. Like here's that list of newsletter swaps where you can see all the dates that other authors have their newsletters going out, how many people are on their mailing list, If that's got a little green check mark, that means that those stats came directly from their email service provider. And this list just like it goes on and on. You can just hit show more, and you can if you go to the top of the page, you can add like what tags they would need to have in it, or you can exclude certain tags, etc. So yeah, I would just go to your dashboard and hit that text box, build mailing list, or find reviewers text box, and those things will give you a checklist of what to do.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So if anyone have any questions, this is your last call. Ask them out. Otherwise, I think it's okay if if anyone sends you an email, right, with the question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, amazing. So I guess we'll be finishing our webinar. Thank you so much for being such a wonderful guest and telling us more about newsletter and author website and your amazing tool. I'm like yeah, I'm super sure this is useful and will make a life of authors much easier because like marketing is such a difficult stage in the process. So
Yeah.
yeah, thank you for bringing so much value in indie publishing community.
Yeah. Thanks again for having me be here.
Okay, thank you everyone for visiting, for listening to this webinar. Again, you will receive an email with information about Evan's StoryOrigin app and also a replay of this webinar. And Evan has some gift for you. So, what is the gift?
Oh, yes, yes, yes. So if anyone wants to get started with StoryOrigin, you can use a code that is specific to this webinar that we're doing here. It is, I will drop it in the chat. It is ART24, all caps, ART24, and that will give you 24, sorry, 24. That will give you 50% off of your first year with StoryOrigin when you sign up to the yearly billing option. So when you're signing up to a StoryOrigin plan, that's something that we didn't talk about at all, but we should probably briefly mention is how much does StoryOrigin cost? StoryOrigin is $10 per month or $100 per year. And so if you use that code ART24, all caps, uh, with the yearly billing option, it'll take that price from $100 per year to $50 for the first year. Um, and at those the $10 per month or the $100 per year, that is called the standard plan. It gets you all of the features. There's no restrictions, so you get access to everything that we talked about today, like the group promos, newsletter swaps, review copies, beta copies, all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. Thank you so much again. So yeah, we are finishing up. Be welcome to send Ivan emails with questions. So if you want to try StoryOrigin, and also please let us know how did you like this kind of format for Miblart. If you want to see it more, what kind of publishing experts would you like to have opportunity to ask questions to? We would love to hear your feedback. Then everyone have a great rest of the week and yeah, see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.